Good afternoon. Welcome to Put Your Family First podcast. I am your host, Dr. Calvin T. Manning, with the hostess, Dr. Heather Rue, and the co-hostess, David Patterson, in the building. And on today, we got the special MC on the microphone, two steals, a wheel, DJ Shani. So today we tapping in to a special conversation on for men, about men, and that's with that's one of David, soon to be Dr. David Patterson's specialty program, and so we want to just air out a little bit just today to get started because we want the people in the public to know that it is a special effort around family, that we continue to raise the bar in the conversation in the process. Heather, how are you?
I'm doing great today. Nice and cold and crisp.
Is that cold?
It's cold, yes. It's cold. I haven't taken off my boots, so yes, it's cold.
Okay. And then Brother Dave?
Oh, everything's lovely.
Okay, good. We want to make sure that everybody was feeling good. Some cold and everything is lovely. Me, I like it. I don't have no problem if it's cold. I don't have a problem if it's hot. I'm a fair weather guy. Although when I'm sleeping, sometimes people had the heat on Jamaica. Right? And so it's kind of difficult to sweat and sleep at the same time, you know what I mean? But other than that, everything's kosher. So we're gonna get into it for a minute, but Shani, if you can put up flyer 1. So this is our 12th year. Many of you don't know the story. This was taught to me by a community. What do you call them, Heather? A community leader, but she was more than just a leader, right? She helped start Thaw, that a lot of people don't know about, but my friend Z. Ramil Pace, who taught me 12 years ago how to do the pancake breakfast. She used to host a major one at St. Cecilia, and I told her my goal was to turn the pancake breakfast into one of the biggest community events in Michigan that would bring all cultures together. And we see like no time is better than present right now, that someone has to take that mantle. So unity is love is the theme this year. And to be clear, Z moved on from brain cancer. And so in the past, I've done a number of things. We've done prostate cancer, colon cancer. We've done lupus.
Sickle cell.
And so one day I'm going to do something for Z, but we tried before to do something for Z, and that didn't work out the way that we wanted. So, but for me, she remains a force because Z left a mark in my life. For those of you who might know, her last words to me was, never stop. And what you can imagine for someone who was dealing with cancer, brain cancer at that, right? That never stopped. And one day I'll even go in for, I always talk about her at the beginning of the pancake breakfast and while we're there. That's been my thing lately, and that's what we'll continue to do, because I don't want it to go away. I don't want people to forget that I'm not going to forget her. And I think that's important to me. So today we're going to get into this conversation with Deacon, Pastor, Reverend, Doctor, Mentor. Oh, that's Heather, your identity is key.
Oh, yes. So we have our monthly Women Ignited seminar coming up on Saturday, February 15th from 10 a.m. to noon. And as you can note on our flyer, we have 3 presenters and teachers and insights coming from our personal life, our financial life, and our social and intimate relationships. And so each one of us takes that particular subject, and we build that around the theme for the month. So the theme is identity is key. That's knowing who you are, knowing whose you are, and knowing who we are as a collective. And I think in this time more than ever is a perfect time to reinforce who we are and our identity and what we're rooted in, which includes our values, our beliefs, our integrity. And so it's a great conversation to have. It's a lot of inner work, self-work, that's self-directed, but also that gives other people, including us, because we share perspective and we learn every time we come together. So it just opens up a safe space to do this work and do it from the 3 different lenses that I mentioned. Yep. And you can register at yourinspiredwithad.journey.com. So you can always register and get your tickets in advance. We're meeting out in Inkster for this session. And so many of our people who are on that side of town, who are more deep west, who don't get a chance to participate, we wanted to open it up because there's a lot of work going on in Inkster. There's a lot of work going on with the community, with families, with individuals. And so we wanted to make sure that we opened up that window. And our partner who is allowing us to host this session at their Praise Cafe. So it will be hosted by the City Praise Gospel Cafe. It's on Inkster Road, just north of Cherry Hill. And so we thank the Pastor Crawford, Dr. Crawford and Mrs. Crawford for extending the invitation for us to use that site. So really excited and thankful and grateful for them to open the doors for us.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get down right into the belly. Brother Dave, tell everybody about For Men About Men.
Well, FM AM is For Men About Men was a program I designed back in 2011. And what drove the purpose was I noticed I was a soldier in the military for 30 plus years. And what I had noted was men were struggling with their ability to express themselves in a way that didn't seem threatening or overwhelming or lack empathy or lack the ability to effectively communicate with family and their spouses, if you will. I could see a soldier who could hit a fly's wing at 300 meters, and then when they're devastated by some emotional impact in their life, they'd be over in the fetal position in the corner. And they felt they didn't have any outlet or any opportunity to express their true feelings in a way that people could understand it. So I began to develop groups as I went around the communities and the various locations I was at with men so they could express themselves. And so that, coming from the 60s, there was only 2 stations you had on the radio, and that was FM and AM. So it drove the title For Men About Men.
Okay. And so as you were going through these things, what is the one thing that was inspired you even more for us to move this into programming? Besides that, what triggered you to take that action? Besides it being where men were in this position, but what really triggered you to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to make this a program?
Well, I thought that there was something lacking in the earlier period. Even how me and you got together, I found that there was nothing that would really support men's ideal outside of us being a provider, protector, the soldier, if you will. And I thought that men needed a foundation to build upon in relation to who they were. So this is how it came into play with me starting to study emotional intelligence. Because many times the things that we expected from men was more outward presentation than inward development. So I decided to come up with something that would allow us to develop inside out, because usually that's how it is. There's no farm and no harvest that's ever been produced by something that wasn't planted inside the soil. And I knew that men had the potential to be able to execute a level of communication that would be more effective than what we see from the primitive way that they present us as just kind of primitive man, brutes, what have you. Or we lack the inability to express emotion in an appropriate way. It drove me because I found myself always in the struggle, not having someone who I could share my true feelings with and be able to not be judged in a critical way. We all make judgment, but I like to say we shouldn't judge to criticize, we should judge to understand. And I felt that men, as the ones I was exposed to, and I'm exposed to many because the military is 80% male. And so the stories I heard, and I can tell you with documentation from all the people I saw, and I saw thousands of people, because I also was a part of the MOB and DMOB process. So we process people being able to go overseas to the war zone. I felt that men needed to have a strong constitution about who they were, as Dr. Heather always say, that our identity. So I felt that men need to develop a stronger foundation in their identity, to not be moved by external factors, but to be strong in internal stability, to be internally stable.
Right, which is important.
Yes.
It's important because if a man, as we see today, what would be the first thing, because you deal with a number of people anyway, but when we're talking about men, right, what can a man expect, through the process, even if that's something we talk about? We know we do the intake and all that other stuff, but like, what is one of the tools a man can use from this concept, right now to assist himself?
Is to spend more time developing, again, who they are. One of the things I try to tell men is that we will spend more time focusing on the inner person. Too often we're so preoccupied with external things, job, family, friends, everything outside of ourselves, that we don't have a strong foundation of who we are. So when you come into the program, we have a discussion in relation to who are you? What's your why? What's your purpose? What's driving you? What wakes you up in the morning? What is the foundational thing that drives passion out of you?
Well, that's a beginning, because a lot of us don't know.
And that's a fact. See, many times we've been so conditioned by social norms to operate more in the mechanical format versus developing who we are from inside out. God in the scripture tells us about when he had sent out Samuel to look for a king. He said, don't look at what man looked at, was the outer appearance. Look at what's in the heart. See, because what's in a man's going to come out of man. What a man think is what he's going to produce. So if you think on garbage, you're going to produce garbage. If you think on negativity, you're going to produce negativity. If you think on something that has a positive return, you're going to think on the level of making sure that you get something deposited in you for somebody depleting you.
And that allows for some area of growth.
Right, that's the intention. I had a commercial that came on a few weeks ago, and I've been paying attention. I've been pushing it a lot. A lot of times people are striving to be perfect, but perfect is kind of a term that is eluding, because most people will not reach perfection. Or if they will reach is a level of maturity in a way that says, I've maximized my potential in this. The commercial says, and here's the deal, so you want to eat this donut, that's 90 calories, or you want to eat this cake, it's 200 many calories, and you're going back and forth because, again, you don't have a sound foundation of which one to do, right? Because you don't know who you are. Like, I need to know I can do this or not. They're telling you right out the gate, this is not about perfection, this is about progression. The Bible tells us the race is not given to the swift or the strong, but him that endure to the end. So if you're striving towards achieving a goal, you're going to get some distractions. You're going to get some diversions, but you keep on pressing on. So go on and eat that donut today, but don't eat it tomorrow because you got to go. You are intentional.
Right.
Right.
That's awesome.
But you don't beat yourself up, see. That's the goal. There's no condemnation in Christ. Why are you condemning yourself?
You know, it's funny that you say that. It's interesting because everybody beats themselves up. And the other part of that, Dave, is no matter whatever the presentation is, if you have to go up and you have to do a sermon, a part of you is being told instantly, you hear, are you ready? You sure you want to do this? You start hearing all of that. You know, it was, I forget who it was I was listening to. Oh, no, it was Eric Thomas, Dr. Eric Thomas. And he said that he still, before any time he has to speak or whatever, he still go through the process of not beating himself up, trying to prepare himself for the opportunity. And it was very interesting because I know for a fact that as soon as you come off stage, that was the other thing that my man from the book talked about when you're talking about speaking. And he said as soon as he come off the stage, the first thing he asked was I good? That's the first question that come to him. And he said, was I good enough? Did I do, was I, you know? And he said right away he goes, and those are some of the things that even the top speakers and people and presenters and pastors, they all go through the beating up, but some people go through an extensive beat up. I, for one, have to wrestle with my beat up, and my beat ups can be heavy, and I find myself going through a progression to move away from it now. Now I can say I caught it, I understand where it's coming from, you know, the whole nine. But if, as a man, the society says all these things about us, right? Which, you know, we do in our work. We see it constantly in our work. And so it's in the boy, it's in the man, it's in the husband, it's in the father. What is the solution for the man or the men that need to know about being a man? What is one of the solutions that they can walk away from if after just having a conversation with you or me or Heather? Like, what's a solution that a person can walk away from after having that conversation about being a man?
Then I'm on the journey of developing, become a man. See, sometimes when we look at men, we look at our biological makeup. We look at how social said this is your norm. You came into the world already being prepared. Dr. Miles Monroe said that the seed is already in you.
Right.
Everything that you need to do is already in you.
Yeah.
So they don't need no bird to teach them how to fly because it's already in them.
Right.
You don't need no fish to teach them how to swim because it's already in them. So we begin to teach people not to just get caught up in the social norms and what they said is a standard for you, because God had already set a standard for you before you even come into the world.
Right.
So once you understand, quote unquote, your identity or who you are, the next step comes into the developmental process of becoming a man. And you're going to always be becoming a man, because the man you were at 18, quote unquote, is not the man you're going to be at 58. It's an evolution. It's a process. It's a progression thing that has to be developed ongoing. I like to say it's a pace. You prepare, you get the right attitude, you got the right commitment, and then you have the right expectation, and you execute, because faith without works is dead.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That's a great bridge. That's a great bridge. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because faith without works is dead.
And that's, you know, when you think about that scripture, though, it makes you think that it is about your beliefs, not about your actions. And I'm saying your interactions, your inner work. Like, no, this is faith to believe that, my situation is going to change, my health is going to change. Like, but not really about the inner work, the inner man that needs that work. And I like to think about I think "Encourage Me, I'm Young" is a good example of this. The words, "Encourage me, I'm young." That means that part of you that is still undeveloped, that is not matured, that's missing that one or two things. Maybe it was just love, maybe it was just affirmation, maybe it was time, whatever that thing that happened to you or didn't happen for you when you were younger. That's where you got to do that work. When you're, when you want to whine or you want to complain or you want to fight about those things that you did when you were a child, or it hurt you when you were a child, these are triggers to tell us this is where you need to start that work, or this is what needs work in you. Then we have to grow that person up, because that's the young person that needs the encouragement. And you can be 55 and still have areas in your life where you need that encouragement now to heal that inner child, that part of yourself that never grew to a full maturity. And I think that's where we all have space to work.
Well, that's why the brand was most definitely what has happened is with the brand. We've seen when more adults purchase "Encourage Me, I'm Young" than kids, where they thought that they were buying for a child and they ended up in it. It's because there's a child in every adult that didn't get encouragement. And there's a certain stigma that goes along with what that work looks like. What Dave was saying, because of the focus of the male, he's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but even when we're talking about faith and you talked about action and everything else, that this is a person that literally could go out, as he said, and hit the wing on a butterfly, right? But at the same time will come back from circumstances that he's going through in life and curl up. And so in that just in that statement alone lets you know why today it's about for men and about men, because what's going to happen with all those men that he was able to talk to? How many murder cases did we avoid? How many suicides did we avoid, right? Men didn't have a focus. I sit in here and say, right, that we don't invest in our males. I say that. So Dave is saying that through this work, there are hundreds and hundreds of soldiers and men out there, some who might have a bad heart, who right now could be a hater of the biggest, the player hater of them all, right? But at the same time was inspired, taught, guided from Dave, because Dave was coming from a male perspective. So the sweet sound of For Men About Men is an important tool going forward that will be able to help a considerable amount of men. Dave, what's some other good intricate pieces?
Again, back to the emotional intelligence. One of the parts of what components of emotional intelligence is first is self-awareness. We have to know who we are before we can implement helping other people know who they are. So if I don't know me, how am I help you? I need to understand what that's about. I need to spend that quality time with me. We spend so much time in the business cycle, the hustle and bustle, that we don't spend quality time with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And a part of that is I like to go in the wilderness. You may catch me out in the parks at 3 or 4 in the morning, because I'm spending time with God. I'm spending time with myself, and I'm trying to understand the intricate details of who I am as a person and how do I evolve as a man. Paul said, when I was a child, I thought as a child, reasoned as a child, acted as a child, but when I became a man, I put off childish ways. He was a full-grown man, a scholar and everything, a Roman citizen. But he understood there were key components that was missing. He thought that he knew what he was doing because he was following the other people's program. But God had a different program from him. So when sitting with men, helping them to develop a level of emotional intelligence so they don't be reactive but proactive, and that's my objective, because the prisons are filled with reactive people. See, if there had been a little more conscientious, case in point, I had a gentleman confront me one time, and I, again, let's go with the social norm. Me being a man, I ain't gonna let nobody just trying to chump me out, right? But so I ran this whole thing in seconds in my head. The first part was, is this how I'm gonna beat him down? That was the first thing. That is the typical response, right? Because I didn't do anything to the man. He stepped up to me and just was like kind of buggy. So yeah, I recognize he had some mental health issues, but at that point. And so then I had to run through my head, what is the long-term outcome of this? So if I do what I do, and life would have it, because I'm defending myself, but unfortunately, if anybody ever saw, he got game, or Denzel Washington got an argument with his wife, she hit her head on the stove, next thing you know, he in prison. He didn't have no intention of killing his wife, but end up she died, right? So in 1 minute, 30 seconds, he made a decision, 30 seconds, he followed through, and 30 seconds, next thing you know, 30 seconds, he was in jail. So I had to run through that process. Again, this is all about self-awareness. Once I recognized, okay, this is not going to play out well, what do I do? Do I put up the front that the world is set up to be an image of a man, or do I sit back and say, I am a man, I have nothing to validate with this man who don't know me from a can of paint? Right. So making that decision, I walked away. See, many times if we really understand ourselves and run through that cycle, we begin to recognize how to make quality decisions. Too many people try to say, it was a mistake. No, it was a mistake because it didn't turn out the way you wanted. But if you made a decision because you have prepared yourself, as I said on the PACE, my acronym for PACE, that preparation would have prepared you to make a quality decision that give you a long-term benefit. So again, it's learning how to know who you are.
It's so important. And so in that, how significant is the father in emotional intelligence? Now watch this.
Oh, it's majorly significant because, again, let's go back to your brand, Encourage Me, I'm Young. In that phase where the child is getting developed, that is where the father helps him to understand who he is as a young fella. And there's information that I'm getting ready to share with you that's going to help prepare you. So as you move into adulthood, now you'll even be selective about the person you're going to have a child with. You're not responding on your physical gratification. You're responding on your self-preservation. So when you become an adult and you begin to have a relationship with someone and then you get married, you have prepared yourself to be the father. And then when you become the father, you prepare as a husband. Then as you become a father, you have quality tools to put in that child so that child can now make quality decisions that will be conducive to their life long-term, not short-term. Because short-term gratification usually gets you in a bad position. But long-term planning gets you in a position that can continue after you are gone. That seed will continue to carry the legacy because you put something strong in that child.
That's right. That's right.
The seed carrier.
You know what came to my mind while you were talking, Dave? The movie Forge.
Yes.
I know that was one of the movies that you all took the boys to see to help them to understand, to see mentoring from a different perspective as well. Can you talk a little bit about where you might see some connections between that particular movie and your movement?
Oh, that movie was awesome. That movie was awesome. And I was with my man here, Big Cal, a man who is setting that foundation and opening up doors to help young people. The connection there was, here we go, a man who started in his youth trying to figure out what direction to go. And again, as I said earlier, the world had conditioned him to move to get financial success, public recognition, status. But all those didn't develop who he was from the inside out. Then when everything crumbled, he didn't have a foundation to stand on. So he recognized at that point he had to make some decisions to be a little more conscientious of his action. So now his actions would affect people in a positive way. So when that young man, encouraged me. Young came in the door. He was just what he was talking about. Someone that didn't have any foundation. Someone who was angry. Someone who was confused in his emotions. Didn't have a strong identity. So by his experience through the life challenges he had went through, he proceeded to now implant in that young man that there's a different approach to handling life and in how you move into manhood. That young man's transformation was so amazing that you saw it in the outward presentation of his existence. He came in there looking like a little thug, for lack of other term. Next thing you know, through the movie, he started looking like a man. Now, so it wasn't debatable. Is that a man? Shoot, even the man he once came in as a thug, using that term loosely, when that man saw me, he'd even recognize him. Who you? I don't remember you coming in my place. I don't know what you're talking about. Transformation.
Complete transformation. And it's funny because, like you said, Dave, I think it was made clear in the movie as well, beyond the transformation, how he first emotionally handled dealing with his father. And then the second time, when they came through the door for the opportunity, he had been mentored even more so. So whatever was going to come through that door, you got to handle it. That was a powerful piece when we have transitioned young men into men. There are young men that came to our program that right now at 14 literally carry themselves at 17, 18 years old. That's part of our dynamic, is to prepare you further down the line. So when he comes into our mentoring program, right, he goes through a process to go and get those other levels. So, I think about, Kyrie all the time, right? And so it's the same. How old is Kyrie? Well, Kyrie is a kid. He's really a young child. He's 8, not even 9. Yeah, Kyrie's just 8. He don't turn 9 until this year. So Kyrie been in the program since he was in the bassinet. So he done hung around in the bassinet. Now I'm on Kyrie about not being 8 years old emotionally. Because academically, he got his gifted letter. So we got the outcome from the work that we can already go to the lower level age group of boys 3 to 7 because of Kyrie. But Kyrie wants to still hang on to the 8-year-old things. But academically and conversation-wise, he's 10 already. In some cases, 11. And he reads on a whole nother level. Well, that was the same thing for Cam. Right? Cam come in, Cam was able to read at 4. What is the key pieces to that, though? It is us as fathers, the men. This is what the culture, this is what the United States is missing in these fatherless homes. Not just black, white, and any other fatherless home. Is a man, as Dave talked about, what was on the seed. Because if all I produce is deception, foul creations, bold, because I'm always talking about the seed carrier. That is why the attack is so severe on the male. He carries the seed of life. So what is his production? Right? So when we bring men into the room, who are fathers, the mentee is getting this. You understand what I'm saying? We don't understand how important the work that we have been doing or have done, because we are culturally out of order. So we would see we would see some things in a different way anyway. So when we talk about fathers or we talk about men, you hear right away, what about the girls? What about the women? What about that? So on, so and so. Men always cheat. Men ain't this, right? You always hear that. Men and so on, so on, so on. Something happened. And where our men, our boys, right now the voice is loud and we go into this protection mode, but it's all feminine protection. Where the masculine protection, right, is we are use the term staying out the way. Or we've become predatory in sports and coaching and teachers and classroom, where we become predatory because we have been staying out the way. So it's like nobody really is watching us. So the immaturity, as he was just talking about, we work from a prowess standpoint that makes me feel good by my prowess and how many women I can conquer, right? But on your seed is the same thing. I am the seed of my father. I know what that has done. So when you have this process and understanding, I grew into the seed of purpose from them. When I was asked, what is my story on, what is my background on fatherhood? Oh, well, let me tell you. My great-grandfather was the first pastor on television, and my grandfather on my daddy's side and my grandfather on my mother's side built the church together. My uncle Vernon was a pastor. My cousin John, pastor. Right? My brother Columbus, pastor. Right? When it came to my life, part of the contribution of what we're talking about for men, about men, that's my life. So understanding what he's saying is paramount to the culture, the people. The American culture is under siege by one look. This is not the look that you have to follow. You have an option to see that these are, as my man Curtis Blow say, these are the braves, right? These are the great things that we have accomplished. And this is a fault. It's Black History Month, and I'll move on in a second and throw it back to Dave, but I got to go here. It's just for me. I got to go here. This is a fault. Of all the great things black men did, when you go into the Invention Hall of Fame, 85, 86% of all inventions were done by black men. Mm-hmm. When you go in there, you see black men and you see who they took the patents from, where they took and you see all of these black men created all these things, right? It was as they knew.
Yeah, they was already inside them. See, what their gifts, their talents, ability, God had already implanted in them. And it was just a matter, in their particular case, especially this was more historical, 1800s, what have you, there was a necessity to have to do this in order for them to get out. This period of time, we have more access to information and resources ever in the history of life. And yet we're just as primitive as we was back in the older days. And I say that because, again, we don't have an internal strong foundation. Who we are and what we do are two different things, but always who you are is going to come out in what you do. So if garbage is in me, as I said earlier, but these men, I got that list actually, these inventors, they had something in them, and their attention centered it on those abilities and gifts. And that's how we see the manifestation. Now, the other counterparts, now they saw their abilities and the gift too. They were going to use it to maximize on their potential to excel, to be the dominant. We lacked something that helped us to be able to maintain that gift and abilities and those talents and resources that God had already put in us. And to present date, if we begin to develop our boys, I like to always start from the last to the beginning, the elderly, the mature adult, the middle-aged adult, the young adult, the teenager, the adolescent, toddler, newborn, unborn, the developmental phases we have to go to. In our arena of the young kids, like the 9-year-old, what have you, encouragement, yeah, we catch them at the right time, so now we can ignite those abilities and skill set, and then help them to structure through cognitive teaching to reframing in order to help them put those things in proper perspective. I'm not a football, let's rephrase this. I don't follow sports like Cal do, but I was watching halftime. And so I'm watching the rapper. Now, he took his gifts and he used it to maximize on it. But again, there still was an image. Unfortunately, if you don't have the ability to decipher this is an image just for entertainment, you think this is the way of life. So now everybody walking down the street want to be a rapper. But you got your own gift. And you have to be able to know that your gifts and ability is just equally as important. But because we're not conscientious of that to accept ourselves that we have value too, we keep trying to emulate somebody else. You know, just because your name is Tommy Hilfiger or Gucci, that's just the name. Your name is equally important. So we teach our young kids, as we do with EMIYTV, I'm Young, that you got value coming right out the gate. Mm-hmm. And so when we teach them that, we prepare them with that, and we keep pushing these buttons to them. You can take this, for example. I'll never forget when Michael Jackson's song came out, Bad. I was like, that's a bad song. Not because I thought it was good. It was just bad. I ain't like that song. But you know what they kept doing subliminally? They kept playing it. They kept playing it. They kept playing it. They said, man, that's a jam. Well, if we keep playing the same tune, you are great. You are God created in God's image and His likeness. You are a masterpiece. We keep pushing these things in a positive way, and then giving them skill sets to build on, basic skill sets just to, again, go in there and clean up your room. Go in there and be organized. Develop a systematized approach. Go in and begin to study to show yourself approved, that you can rightly divide the word of truth and not garbage. These skill sets are prepared, soft skills. And if we develop these soft skills, then they can handle the hard thing, because the storm is coming. And that's where I said about the guy that can hit a flight at 300 meters, because he developed the hard skills. He can shoot. You can give him doubt about that. He can do that. But he couldn't take the hit when the round came to his heart. See, so we develop these things, and that's why For Men, About Men is important, because this is for you, about you, to develop you, to prepare you, so you can go do what you were called to do.
Hey,
and
Dave,
that's real.
How do you look at one of the things that stands out to me about some things that you guys did with the program, like the meditation group, just to take some quiet time, just to breathe and just to bring your focus and your attention. How do you see that, or do you see the need for that and For Men, About Men?
Oh, it's so important. See, we're in a rat race mentally. Joyce Meyer said that the battlefield is the mind. And so mindfulness allows you to quiet the mind, to be still, to come in touch with who you are. There was a time I studied with the Buddhists, and so you had to be still a long time. And, they like to get in all these positions. My body just wasn't ready for that initially. But they like in these positions, for your legs, be still. They do the chime and all that. But I was there for a different reason. I wanted to get to understand who I was. And that was the one thing that I found, that you need to quiet your mind so you can hear the quiet voice, the quiet, still voice in you. If we pay close attention, this quiet, still voice will guide us and direct us. But if I'm entertaining the traffic of the world, then I'm going to be in a traffic jam. And so when it comes down to making quality decisions, I go out with confusion. I become Babylonian. I become what the Babylon. Why at that time that the language has changed and it brought about confusion. We want to be centralized. So when we ask the boys to be still and be quiet, we want them to center on who they are. This helps the boy, this helps the teenager, this helps the young adult. As you be still, I tell people, man, at least spend 15 minutes with yourself. Now, I'm not a be still kind of guy, so I go to the wilderness. I don't want to hear the traffic. I don't want to hear nothing but nature. And when I'm in nature, nature's working through me, and I can bring my thoughts to a centralized focus and be intentional. No longer do when I lead the forest, at least in that moment, I'm no more than wandering generality. I'm a meaningful Pacific.
So the importance of that, the breathing circle. as he stated, the cognitive effect.
That's right.
So when I remember somebody saying it wasn't, the work we was doing wasn't for mental health. All right. and because they have a perception of what mental health is supposed to look like.
That's right.
From our perspective, when you have 8-year-olds yelling and screaming, spoiled, got to count on their mom, everything, can't tie their shoe, all this stuff is taking place. Hygiene, all those things. And then in 14 weeks, they're in better shape, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. They got a different understanding. When they come back through, it's the same thing. Eventually, they make the adapt. Some have come 2 years and been gone, dominating, doing great things, right? We don't understand as if it's okay for you to meditate, they call that mental health. Dave said he go in the wilderness, the boys, they go to the middle of the floor. They supposed to do 60 deep breaths, which takes them roughly about 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. So we go 3 minutes. In that time, it is absolute silence. Now, throughout the day, you can see on the kids, some kids, it's hard for them to close their eyes because of what they see or what they believe. So when we mandate, you got to close your eyes and focus. When they get up, it's a different process when it's time for them to run. Mm-hmm. Some come through the door, no matter what they've been going through, it's difficult for them to make that adjustment right away. But I guarantee you in 14 weeks, as we turn the heat up and the processes and everything, by the end, 90-some% of them boys has gotten better.
Yes.
They've gotten better. And so they're able to go into school and offer a different perspective because the fathers was doing the mentoring. And so now they're not as emotional, which comes back to what Dave is teaching and talking about with emotional intelligence. Our boys are not as emotional unless, right, they unravel the work that we teach them. Right. When the parent unravels and don't follow what has been taught, that child has a setback all the way back to when they first brought them in. That setback takes them that much longer to get back to where they got in 14 weeks. It takes them that much longer to get back. So what is essential is for us to understand for men and about men is what was taken away. And we as a culture bought into the disorder. And now the disorder is very, very present. And it's harmful. And so that's why our work was so important. That's why this work is so important. Do you have a question, Heather?
Actually, I was thinking about as we look at men building men, men helping men, I think it's important to have that dynamic, that exchange. And I think we need to have more value for that process. That even though there are programs that are run by women, the need for that program to make sure that men are supporting men, I think is very important. And I'd just like to hear your perspectives about that.
Yeah, I think that the scripture will tell us iron sharpen iron. We learn to support one another by experiences, our interpretation of the experiences, the knowledge that we gather, the understanding we gather, the clarity that we gather to give them the wisdom. So as we exchange ideals, I always say to people, nobody's ideals or information is irrelevant because it's all like going to a smorgasbord. You get what's important for you or what you need. So as Calvin share his knowledge, as I share my knowledge, as Victor share his knowledge, and all the other supporting pieces that come into play with all the other people that come in, each of us are putting something in that child that is transforming this child into maturity. As Calvin was talking about the circle, as you brought up about the meditation, 14 weeks is absolutely correct. 14 weeks, a child comes in, they fidgeting, they playing with their legs, they picking at swords, and they doing all this stuff, right? And they're talking, their eyes are bucked. So you look at their eyes all bucked open and everything. But probably about the 6th week, you don't see that. Now it becomes something they look forward to. And hey, we're going to get in the circle. Now somebody new come in, they don't get it. But they get into the circle. By the 14th week, we don't have to say nothing. They over there getting in the circle. They're meditating, they're focusing. Now, what they get out of it, we're not experiencing, because when I eat, don't nobody else experience the sweetness. But they're getting something because we can see the outward change in their action. So having mentors and men sharing ideals, and not by people criticizing it, but trying to get understanding from it, it expels the darkness of ignorance, because now you get the knowledge of light.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I for me, it's always the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
It's seeing. As I don't share this often. I think I shared it the other day. But when I see a young man, there's a vision that I have that takes place on this young man. And I then can envision them mentally, physically, spiritually, academically. I can envision them in other areas, right? Why? Because I read. So I'm very understanding of the different walks of life and skills and things that, like, we'll point out and say, yeah, one day Evan gonna be a lawyer, right? You can see in the process that that's something that's doable for him, right? How do you enhance that? You structure him in a way for him to do so, and that's, for me, that's it, right? Is the outcome. Because when I started this, when God tapped me on the shoulder years and years and years and years and years ago, it was about making sure that every young person got their dream. And that's important to me. So I think you can show that now, Shani. Yeah. But yeah, that for me, that's always been, how do I see?
Are you an indie podcast or content creator looking to reach a wider audience? Look no further. Introducing Podcastic, the ultimate podcast network designed exclusively for indie creators like you. At Podcastic, we believe in the power of unique voices and fresh perspectives. We're here to amplify your passion and creativity, connecting you with a growing community of engaged listeners who crave original content. Podcastic is more than just a platform. It's a support system built for indie podcasters, offering a range of resources to help you succeed. From tailored promotional campaigns to professional production assistance, we're here to help you shine. Our intuitive platform makes it easy for you to be seen and heard. We do all the heavy lifting for you. You just show up and create. Plus, with our advanced analytics, you'll gain valuable insights into your audience's preferences, allowing you to refine your content and grow your fan base. Ignite your passion, expand your reach, and thrive with podcasting. Visit our website at www.podcasticlife.com to get started. Podcastic, the home for indie podcasts and content creators.
Yeah, so I guess we are rolling into your last moment. So, Dave, anything you'd like to add to For Men, About Men?
Yes, as we continue to develop the program from the inside out, I hope that eventually it will be able to be promoted in a way that will be the difference and make a difference in our community. And I think with the collaboration of Encouragement Young and Good Fathers Only, I think that we have an ingredient for success.
Heather? Closing. Oh, Dave, where can they reach you at?
Oh, at FMAM, 4 Men About Men on Good Fathers Only. FMAM on Facebook, and DROM7, DRME7 at yahoo.com.
Heather?
Oh, my closing remarks. I'm excited about the work that you all do. I'm excited that Dave can have a program and Calvin can have a program, and you can collaborate. That men can work together to bring forth the change that we need to see in ourselves, in our families, in our community, and in our culture. I think that's a really big, it's a really big and exciting, combination of things to watch, because where there's life and growth and there is help and there's collaboration, there's ultimately change. And I think that's how we're going to see the fruit of the legacy and the fruit of the labor of the men that have been doing this work for so long. And I'm just excited. I'm excited to hear it. I love to hear about that men are doing the inner work. I'm so much involved in women in our work that it's good to see men doing their own inner work, self-work, and how they build those bridges together. So I'm excited about that. You can reach me at yourinspiredwithad.journey.com. That's Your Inspired Journey. And you can reach me by phone. Please reach out to me directly at 313-759-7855. Yep.
So, thank you. Thank you both, right? So, you can reach me at calvintman.com. Booking now for speaking engagements, schools, hospitals, and all. The good part about something being for men, and the good part about something being about men, is getting an understanding who men and how we thrive. When you leave us out and you constantly repeat, as Dave was talking about, all the negative attributes that it's very easy to roll off your tongue. You speak from the seed, from where the people have planted things in you that shares a different process. The seeds, how I was made is important. Mother, father, love, marriage. And when I say marriage, people, you don't have to be on the certificate, right? You can go through the ceremony and hold to the vows and do your thing. When I say marriage, I'm not just talking about one thing. I'm talking about multiple. However you see marriage to be, as long as the children are made of love. That is important because that shapes our children, especially the seed carrier. So from one seed carrier to the next, fatherhood being established in the culture does not take away from motherhood. In fact, if ever witnessed or seen in an eye-to-eye format. In 2012, they recognized that the most involved father was a black father. In this country, fatherhood is a big deal. But we have far too many fathers hurting and denied access to the children. And we keep shaping our young men from that process. And therefore, that makes for a bad dating pool. When men are not shaping the boys, we will have the wrong response to situations. When men are, and the men that are responsible for these young men will help them achieve the possibilities that they seek in their dreams. I just believe in my own personal work of 40 years. Me and Dave got some things in common when you talk about years of work. 40 years. All my boys are husbands and fathers. When we talk about the understanding of that, the contribution that as men that we made, we live for men, about men, because that's what God picked us to do. My name is Dr. Calvin T. Mann. I am. My wife would say I'm the national encourager, but I'd like to think God has done something in my life that has made me special, and God has brought special people in my life. I am not alone, and that's the grateful part of this journey. Thank you for tuning in today to Put Your Family First podcast. It was a great show. I loved for people to understand that the work continues. It just might be we're making a pivot, and the reason why is because they don't understand the value, so we have to raise it in another way. Peace.
Let's start the game over.